That should be removed. Second demand is that you have taken 9,200 as a tax collection, and you are only have 2,200 rupees proposal for the budget. So there is a gap according to them for the working. And their last demand is that 9,200 is not acceptable to them. It is on the lower side. These are the three fundamental questions which they have raised about the budget which has come in last week.
Yes, so it's 6:30, but I could make a very dull proposal. Suhai Abru was supposed to dance perform after this, but she is not able to make it because she couldn't get her passport back. Perhaps we can get 10 minutes extra to eat into the time allocated. Yes, raise hands. Okay, so it's a very dull proposal substituting economics for the dance performance, but we can. So, yeah.
Okay, hello,
Oh yes, I think we've been accused of being a manel instead of a panel.
All right,
so
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make it
all
quick.
women are going to ask questions. Couple of questions.
Sorry, can you hear me? आवाज आ रही है?
There's so many hands here. We only just 10 minutes extra and then we finish.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Right. Sorry, my name. Okay. My name is Tariq Rashid. Thank you for your brilliant recommendations, which we all agree with. No, I was just saying that your recommendations are absolutely brilliant, which I'm sure everyone agrees with. But we all know that they'll never be implemented consistently. So should we not be looking forward to catastrophic default in which the mobs come out and there's no electricity, because it will focus the minds of the establishment to make the deep structural reforms which would otherwise never be made in Pakistan? So should we not be looking forward to a default situation?
Thank you. I hope it's not just the woman token that I've got, but actually I have a point. So my name is Sadaf Musri, and and I work for the New Economics Foundation, British think tank, and we advise the Labour Party on policy. So we have similar problems here as well. And it's quite interesting to see the kind of overlaps. When I look at Pakistan, you have £7.5 billion you're in debt to the IMF, and the IMF's history has been to liberalize, privatize, and kind of let the market do everything, right? The neoliberal policies. And you've seen that wherever they've done this, in the Middle East, or in Africa, or in Asia, it has caused more damage than actual good. And when we look at, the history of even Western countries, they focused on protectionist measures. So actually now they're talking about, you mentioned that everyone has these problems, but actually the Western countries had these problems, but they distorted the market rather than relying on the market to solve everything. And actually it was distorting the market and distorting prices. So my question is, for us to industrialize, sorry, not me, but for Pakistan, and to move away from the primary commodity trap, and towards manufacturing or the service economy, there has to be some sort of state-led development, and that means that you do need to focus on what China is doing, and what China did, because it was, in the 1950s, it was what Sudan is today. So the question, how did they move so much, and how much they developed so much, was because of market distorting points, so which was against privatization, liberalization, but first protecting it and then opening the market to the global economy. What is Pakistan doing to ensure that they're not just focusing on private capital, but actually developing the industry so they're strong, and then they are engaged with private capital? And just one last thing, for that to happen in China, what they did also was to talk about feudalism and land reform. So what is Pakistan doing? I know there's great speakers here and advisors to the government, but what are they doing to create land reform, which is a necessary step to even talk about any of housing or education, infrastructure reform in Pakistan? So those are two questions.
Let me answer this question in simple medical terms. If you have a problem, health issue, and you are asked to take a pill, and you say, it is a bitter pill, I will not take it. Then condition worsens, and then the doctor says you have to take an injection, and you don't take the injection, and the condition worsens, and you have to go to the ICU. But you can't blame the doctor, because you haven't taken those actions. Pakistan entered into 24 programs with the IMF during 1988 to 2022, and only 3 or 4 of them were completed. 18 of them were incomplete in the sense they drew the first tranche, got the money, and say, bye-bye, we're not going to do the reforms. What we are saying, all of us, that you have to put your house in order, you have to be economically healthy, you have to take care of your diet, so you don't have to go to the IMF. And that is what other countries have done, and they have proved. So place the blame ideologically on a doctor is not very desirable.
I want to address that first question just for a minute about, which said that we know that these policies will never be implemented, and isn't it absolutely crystal clear that we are headed to default, and shouldn't we look forward to default? So I am struck by the lack of conviction that is represented just not only in that question, but the questions that one typically gets. And it's a puzzle as to why have we lost so much hope that we cannot address this crisis. And I want to remind, it's not the case that we have always not managed to address our problems. And I want to come back. The biggest crisis that the world economy has seen since World War II was the COVID crisis, and Pakistan was internationally recognized as having handled that crisis very well. Pakistan is one of the perhaps 2 or 3 countries that reduced its debt to GDP ratio during that crisis. So I would urge to rephrase that question by saying that if the same country, the same people are able to handle a much bigger crisis and come out of it very well and get international recognition, it is within our power to come out of this crisis as well. But the first thing I feel we really need is conviction, and to not lose that conviction. Because Shabbar bhai ne bhi aur Zafar bhai ne bhi sher o shairi ki hai, to I'm reminded of Iqbal कि गुलामी में ना काम आती हैं शमशीरें न तदबीरें, गुलामी में ना काम आती हैं शमशीरें न तदबीरें, जो हो ज़ौक़ यकीन पैदा तो कट जाती हैं जंजीरें.
देखिए हमारा जो बेसिक प्रॉब्लम है वो ये है कि आज हम it is depressing for all of us that today we are sitting here and talking about Pakistan default. कल तक हमारे सबके सीने बड़े तान के थे, हम न्यूक्लियर पावर हैं, हम ये हैं, हम वो हैं. इसका मतलब है हम इंटेलेक्चुअली करप्ट हैं. We can't see ahead. What has happened to Pakistan? Has it happened in 6 months? Or has it happened in 1 year? We don't understand that we Pakistanis have not yet have been able to see the things beyond their lances which they have. So if there would have been default in the month of November, the dollar would have been on 200. And this, they have dragged it to 320 rupees because of unnecessary ego. I say don't call it default, call it honeymoon. Give it a new name. But it's a reality. It's a reality, you have to accept it. It is reprofiling, we do a day in, day out. So the problem with the Pakistanis is that we are intellectually not fair with us. When we have good days, we forget all our past, we don't correct ourselves, and then when things bad, we say that something has gone wrong.
Can you Zafar sir?
मैं सिर्फ एक चीज just want to address
20 seconds. 20
her
seconds.
question directly of the again a misnomer and a populist slogan, I would say. Land reform by default has happened in Pakistan now. 89% of our total land holdings are below 12.5 acres. And 63% are below 5 acres of land. So in fact, we need to go in the other direction in order to get the yields up, which is a basic requirement to achieve 6% growth rate. We need to go for cooperative agriculture financing, agriculture model, then talking about land reforms.
So we have 7 minutes left.
After
Raza finished with Iqbal's couplet, I didn't want to say this, but I have heard very senior economists of the IMF saying to me, IMF's most successful program was under Pinochet in Chile. What? IMF's most successful program was under Pinochet in Chile.
Quick question. Quick question for Shabbar Sahab actually. So Pakistan has had, since 87 political experiment, a full martial law experiment, and post-COVID a hybrid experiment now. So of all these three experiments, there has been no continuity. So for us to govern and to implement these policies for a sustainable period, what is our preferred model of governance actually as a country?
But my perception on this issue is very, very different. I think the basic problem is our genesis. What is the priority of the Pakistan as a nation? Has it ever been the economic sovereignty or economic betterment of the people of Pakistan? Pakistan is the only country which has been spending 4% of its GDP on military defense for last 75 years, which was highest in the world after Israel. So when you have not spent 75 years on the people, human resources, and things like that, then we blame that mashallah is good, is good or not, unless and until, my personal view is, unless and until we settle our geopolitics, we settle our social structure, unless and until we settle our fundamentalism, unless and until we socialize, we decide on the inclusiveness of the gender and all these things. The kind of government is irrelevant for Pakistan.
So we have 5 minutes left for extra time. So last two questions, the back, Halima. Okay.
Hey, I think it's me with the mic right now. Hi, my name's Sarah Khan. I'm a reporter in New York. And I just had a question. I think first I would have loved to have heard from a female economist or someone discussing the role of women in the next 10, 15 years in Pakistan. But secondly, I think what I'd love to know, especially through my work, a great deal of this informal sector, the wages are just stagnant. The wages are not going up, especially in rural areas. I've done stories in interior Sindh where they're just stuck in these more or less modern day slavery structures where they're making bricks or they're working at a limestone kiln and there isn't much room for them to grow besides just moving to a city. So I'd love to know, in terms of wage stagnation, which is a global worldwide problem, how you see that changing in the next few years.
At 3 minutes of extra time.
Should we take this one as well?
Quick question, very quick question, then we finish.
So,
Quick comment,
Ek aur
please.
Yeah, quick, brief.
Yes. Shabbar Zaidi, quick comment for Ishrat Saab. If you're talking about the root causes of economy, is it also not good to reflect on economy's link with the social sector? Because that's how Bangladesh and India went up ahead. And even if we say that in today's fiscal stress situation, we hold the social sector spending as it is, are there not huge inefficiencies within the social sector spending, huge governance issues, and huge distortions and elite capture?
Okay.
I think you are absolutely right. If the human capital formation was a priority of Pakistan when we were also growing at 6.5% for 40 years, the shape of Pakistan today would have been very different. But we went in for industrialization, we went in for physical infrastructure, but we did not pay attention on the essential ingredient of sustained inclusive growth, which is human capital formation. Now, I'm not a very great fan, because if you look at my work, the public sector in Pakistan spends 2% of GDP on education. But that's an incomplete picture. The private sector and the non-governmental organizations pay 3% of GDP, and the parents pay out-of-pocket expenses for education for their children, which is almost 1 to 2%. So in all, we are spending about 6 to 7% of GDP on education. But look at the quality of education, the governance of education, the management of education in public sector. And that is where money is being wasted and it is not being productive. So the idea that we should have low-cost private schools in the villages and in the rural areas, which has caught up, is the solution with the public-private partnership, which is also very useful, as you have seen. And health also, I have gone to the villages in Sindh and Punjab, and wherever, private sector or non-profit organizations are managing the clinics and the dispensaries, the productive has been very good.
So
Can I just answer? If you want to look at the expenditure on education, health, and the primary services, you have to look at the provincial budgets. But unfortunately, in those budgets, the amount is not short. The problem is that out of that, about 70-80% are salaries. And those are almost ghost employees. So the problem is governance, not the money.
It's been so difficult. So it's been very difficult. Thank you for everyone being here. It's been very difficult to manage such an interesting discussion. Thank you everyone being. Please stay. Yeah, okay. I'll come and speak.